What's good, YouTube? It's your boy JusticeXFalls. We back at it again with another video. Today we're looking at the 10 best Dreamcast games according to the staff of IGN. So that title explains itself. Dreamcast was one of my favorite consoles growing up. I never had one, but I always had family members or a friend from school or a friend from the block that had one, so I was able to play it growing up. So it's a system that I admire. It's a system that, you know, it really just kind of came out too late. It came out too late. You know, they should have put out it came out, 99, I believe. They should have put it out in like 95. They should have had it ready by like 95. You know, it just got blown out of the water by everything else that was coming out. But yeah, it had its time though. Definitely made it sell. So let's look at these top 10 games and see if we agree or disagree.
The Sega Dreamcast was one of the most innovative consoles ever. It also marked the end of an era. Aware that its time in the console business was almost over, Sega said to hell with it and went all in on fascinating, weird experiments, from the delightful rhythm games like Space Channel 5 to strange curiosities like Seaman. In compiling a list of the 10 best Sega Dreamcast games, we sought to create a snapshot of the Dreamcast legacy, which encompassed everything from burgeoning online play to wild peripherals. We kept the focus on North America for the most part, which meant omitting many of the excellent shoot-'em-ups from Japanese video game developers.
Well, Jet Grind Radio, and then, you know,
But
Jet Set Radio Future came out on Xbox, which is a spiritual successor to Dreamcast. Xbox worked with Sega to create the Microsoft worked with Sega to create the Xbox. If you didn't know,
we did manage to sneak in Rez, a pioneering rhythm game that was always meant to be on Dreamcast. The Dreamcast is long gone, but the games listed here live on as some of the most beloved games ever made. Here are the 10 best Sega Dreamcast games of all time.
Let's get it.
A spin-off of The House of the Dead 2, The Typing of the Dead was initially designed to improve one's typing and practice
Typing of the Dead.
However, its idiosyncratic gameplay and humor make it so much more than that.
This is a present from me to you.
Instead of a light gun, you're using a computer keyboard and the power of proper spelling and grammar to fend off hordes of the undead.
I would love to play that game.
The Dreamcast didn't have many RPGs, but the ones it did have were good. Along with Skies of Arcadia, Grandia II is generally considered one of the 2 best RPGs on the platform, lauded for its excellent soundtrack and even better battle system.
Yeah, this was underrated. You had voice acting even during battle. Like, that's fire.
While Grandia itself has faded, its mechanics have sprung up in a variety of RPGs over the years, from Ubisoft's Child of Light to Penny Arcade's On the Rain-Slick Precipice of Darkness.
Child of Light, I never heard of that game.
Grandia 2 was also one of the best-looking games on the Dreamcast, filled with high-quality magic spells, special attacks, and other touches. It was a noticeable cut above what was available on the PlayStation at the time, especially during its most elaborate attack sequences. Its visual luster has faded in the years since, but it's still good fun to play, as demonstrated by the recent remaster. It remains worthy of the Dreamcast legacy. The Dreamcast Phantasy Star Online was a rebirth for the brand. Phantasy Star Online was a hit at debut, switching
definitely
from the
a classic
original
series,
dungeon crawling and overworld exploring model to a new 3D real-time action RPG. PSO added online play with friends, character creation, and more to the franchise, which was distinct from the previous game's narratives. Combat was enjoyable and varied depending on your character's customization. Different races and classes excelled at melee, ranged, or technique combat. The 4 quest areas varied in style and fostered replayability by allowing you to level up and acquire materials to feed your pet mag, which would provide special abilities such as buffs, stat boosts, and powerful photon blasts. These features increased replayability by enabling players to create new characters and experiment with alternative race and class combinations. Following its initial release, Phantasy Star featured additional missions, raised level caps, new difficulty levels, and more, all of which could be downloaded, which was uncommon at the time. Phantasy Star Online appeared to just keep going, and for those of us who picked it up again on later systems, like the GameCube or the Xbox, it had a second life, capturing our attention and time all over again with enhancements. Sonic Adventure 2 released just 3 years after the first Sonic Adventure and improved on the original's formula in every way. Levels were tweaked to fit the personalities
another
of the
iconic
characters.
game.
Sonic and Shadow were all about speed and play.
Like, this is a timeless game. This right here, timeless. You could pick this up today, and it'll go toe to toe with any Sonic game that ever came out. Even excuse me, even Sonic Frontiers.
Platforming, Tails and Dr. Robotnik were all about blasting their way to the finish line with their mechs, and Knuckles and Rouge were all about exploration and treasure hunting. Alternate objectives were also included in each level, adding to its replay value. The Chow Garden improved upon its return and was a fun distraction where you could raise and train Chows to complete in races and karate. A 3D version of Green Hill Zone was available as a reward for those who collected all 180 emblems by earning an A in every mission. There were also many two-player head-to-head modes in which you could race on foot, fight in mechs, embark on a treasure hunt, or race in go-karts. Sonic Adventure 2 also featured some of the best music in the franchise's history.
This game was ahead of its time in so many ways.
Escape from the City and Live and Learn were saved for the finale and encore in the Sonic 30th Anniversary Symphony.
This game was super ahead of its time, man.
Sonic Adventure 2, for its time, was everything we had wanted from a 3D Sonic game. Produced in part by Tetsuya Mizuguchi, who would later be known for his work on games like Lumines and Tetris Effect, Rez wasn't just unique, it was cool. It managed to combine rave culture and rail shooters, fueled by the Dreamcast's open-ended creativity. Rez's development team is still emotional about this project to this day, coming as it did in the midst of the Dreamcast's unceremonious death. It would eventually release on PlayStation 2 and is now available on a multitude of platforms, including the Meta Quest 2. But as the last vestige of cool Sega and a rhythm game pioneer, Rez will always be a Dreamcast game first.
That's a fact.
An action game where players venture through Tokyo using skates, spray graffiti, and evade authorities with fun, addictive gameplay
Radio. Definitely get this game if you have a PlayStation 5, because this is only coming out for PlayStation 5 and PC. If you have PlayStation 5 and PC, buy this game. It's fire. The demo's out now if you want to play it. It comes out next month.
Jet Set Radio is something special. While the gameplay in its sequel, Jet Set Radio Future, is a bit more refined, the cel-shaded, vibrant art direction, music, and distinct gameplay of the original make it a true gem that has influenced spiritual successors such as Hover and Bomb Rush Cyberfunk.
Yep. It's coming next year.
Marvel vs. Capcom 2 on the Dreamcast
Another iconic, timeless game
in the world of fighting games. Not only was it a near arcade perfect port, meaning that the developer didn't have to make any sacrifices or tweaks to get it to run just as well as it did in the arcades, but Marvel vs. Capcom 2 was simply one of the best fighting games of its time. Being able to play it at home without having to spend your allowance at the arcade was something that no doubt created an entire generation of fighting game fans.
Facts. Because, like, I remember back in the day, like, if you wanted to play the latest fighting game, you had to go to the arcade. And if you're from the hood, like, you know, you didn't really have the resources to really get to the arcades like that. So you have to maybe find it in like a laundromat or something like that. Like when I was growing up, there was a laundromat down the block from where I used to live, and they had a Street Fighter. Every time the next Street Fighter would come out, they would get the cabinet, and I think they had like Street Fighter 2 Alpha or something like that. Like they kept upgrading the cabinet to get the next Street Fighter. You know, and eventually I moved from that block, and I was still coming back to the arcade to play, to the laundromat to play, but then they eventually shut down the laundromat. You know, as times move on, you know, things advance and things change.
There's a reason why people are still clamoring for more Power Stone. Despite the wealth of arena and party fighters that have come out since Power Stone 2, there's still nothing quite like it. Part of the appeal was that there were just so many different ways to take the fight to your opponent. You could just wail on them.
Slept on game series, man. This needs to come back. I have the Power Stone collection for PSP. So if you could find that for a decent price, I would say get it. And if you have an old PSP, I would say get it. Slept on fighting game, arena fighting game. One of the, to me, in my gaming history, one of the pioneering games for arena fighters. You know, a brawl style, you know, or arena fighters, not named Smash Brothers, because you know Smash Brothers Melee, Super Smash Bros Melee started it all.
come with your character's unique list of moves and special moves. You could run off and hop in a turret or use some other sort of environmental interactable. You could pick up one of the seemingly hundreds of items, or you could hunt down the 3 Power Stones and transform into your super powerful alter ego and turn the tide of the fight definitively in your favor. Power Stone 2's multiplayer battles were just so incredibly dynamic, and the Dreamcast is still the only place to experience them. There's a lot that makes Skies of Arcadia one of the best RPGs of the Dreamcast era, but the #1 reason is its sense of discovery and adventure. Skies of Arcadia is all about being an adventuring sky pirate, discovering new lands, recruiting new crew members to your ship, and, stopping an evil empire from destroying the world with ancient weapons. Skies of Arcadia is charming, its world fascinating, and while many probably experienced it on the GameCube as Skies of Arcadia Legends, the original Dreamcast
that's how I
version
experienced it.
will forever hold a place in the pantheon of fantastic JRPGs.
Yo, this footage is wild, yo.
The original Soul Calibur is still one of the best fighters ever.
Slept on game series right here.
When it came to the Dreamcast, people were still pumping quarters into machines across the world to play, but somehow you got a better version at home with new features and better graphics than the original. To get such an amazing version on a home console was really special, and to this day, the Dreamcast version of Soul Calibur holds up as one of the best things about the console. If you've ever tried this tale of souls and swords, you are missing out on something special.
That's a fact. And this was one of the better looking games for, one of the better looking console games, period, for anything that was out. Like, these graphics were, cutting edge at the time. As you can see, it looks a lot better than most of the games that they showed right here. Probably other than what, Sonic Adventure 2?
Strengthened the soul of hobbies. You win!
And there you have it, our picks for the top
that was a
10
good list.
games. Have we missed any? Did your favorites make the list? Sound off in the comments, and for more top 10s, check out our top 10 Wii U games of all time or the top 10 best PS5 games. And for everything else gaming, you're already in the right place, IGN.
Yeah, so that was dope. That was definitely a dope little list right there. I think that the Dreamcast, like, again, it came out a little bit too late. That was Sega's like last ditch effort. They had the Sega Genesis, the Sega Saturn, the Sega Master System. They tried to get a hold of the gaming market, but they just could never get over the hump with Nintendo and Sony, what they had to offer. But like I said, their efforts did spawn one of the greatest, if not the greatest, console in the modern era, other than the PS2, which would be the Xbox. That series of consoles, because the original Xbox, they worked with Sega, as I said earlier, to create what we now know as the Xbox. So who knows what the Xbox would have turned out like if Microsoft was just working on it on its own. So shout out to Sega. Y'all did good. I honestly want a Dreamcast just because I never owned one. Like, now that I'm an adult, and I'm making some good money, I want to go back and buy all the consoles I never got to buy as a kid, but we'll get around to it. There's more important things to do, bills and rent, saving, investing, and things of that nature. But the list was pretty good to me. Like, it had all of the games that I expected it to have. What did you guys think? Do you think it was missing something? Do you think there was more games that could have been on here that you liked? What are some of your favorite Dreamcast games? Let me know in the comments. So you already know the vibes. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. This is your boy JusticeXFalls. We out. One.